The world ended not with a bang, but a whimper, a slow, creeping dread that wormed its way into our lives, unnoticed at first, but growing ever more insidious. It was a silent invasion, a quiet apocalypse that took hold of our world. The news called it a virus, a rabies outbreak, but it was so much more than that. Then the reports stopped. The phones went dead. Silence, an eerie, all-encompassing silence that signaled the end of everything we knew. That was the true harbinger of the apocalypse. The silence that followed the chaos, the quiet that replaced the noise of everyday life. The silence of a world that was no longer human. A world where the laughter of children and the hum of daily life had vanished. I remember the day the silence broke. It was a day like any other until it wasn't, a cacophony of moans, groans, and snarls. The undead horde, hungry for living flesh, poured into the streets. The undead horde, hungry for living flesh, poured into the streets. Our once vibrant city became a graveyard of shattered glass and broken dreams. Our once vibrant city became a graveyard of shattered glass and broken dreams. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the horrors we couldn't escape. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the horrors we couldn't escape. Now, weeks later, I scavenged for scraps, my stomach gnawing with hunger. Now, weeks later, I scavenged for scraps, my stomach gnawing with hunger. The world we knew is gone, swallowed by a nightmare we never could have imagined. The world we knew is gone, swallowed by a nightmare we never could have imagined. Survival is a game of hide and seek, a constant race against death. Survival is a game of hide and seek, a constant race against death. And the worst part, we're not sure anyone else is even playing. And the worst part, we're not sure anyone else is even playing. The silence, once a harbinger of doom, is now our constant companion, a reminder of the world that was. I wasn't alone. In the skeletal remains of our city, I found others. Sarah, a doctor, her medical expertise our only shield against infection. John, a former soldier, his hardened gaze and steady hand our protector. And little Emily, her innocence a stark contrast to the horrors we faced. We were a mismatched band, brought together by fate and the desperate need to survive. We found refuge in an abandoned bookstore, its dusty shelves a poor substitute for the warmth of our former lives. We shared our meager rations, our stories, our fears. John patrolled the perimeter, his rifle a constant companion. Sarah tended to our wounds, both physical and emotional. Emily, bless her heart, tried to bring laughter back into our lives with her childish games. We were all each other had left. Days bled into weeks, our supplies dwindling with each passing hour. We needed food, medicine, we needed hope. John, ever the pragmatist, had discovered an abandoned grocery store on the outskirts of the city. It was a beacon of possibility in a world shrouded in darkness. We set out at dawn, the silence of the deserted streets almost deafening. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every creak of a door sent shivers down our spines. The fear was a living thing, a predator stalking us through the urban jungle. The grocery store loomed ahead, its once brightly lit sign now dark and ominous. We could almost smell the food, imagine the feast that awaited us, but hope, we were learning, was a dangerous thing in this new world. It made you reckless, it made you vulnerable. We were wrong. It wasn't the promise of food that awaited us, but a nightmare far beyond our worst fears. The street outside that grocery store was a writhing mass of decaying flesh. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Drawn by some unseen force, they pressed against the glass doors, their moans a chorus of hunger. Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through me. We were trapped, outnumbered, outmatched. John cursed under his breath, his hand tightening around his rifle. Sarah's face was ashen, her eyes wide with panic. Even little Emily seemed to understand the gravity of our situation, her small hand clutching tightly to mine. There was no fighting our way through that, no reasoning with the ravenous hunger that drove them. Our only hope lay in escape, in finding a way out of this nightmare before it consumed us. Section 5, Hope's Last Stand. The back, John barked, his voice sharp with urgency. There's got to be a back entrance. We scrambled through the aisles, our backpacks heavy with whatever supplies we could grab. Cans of food, bottles of water, a first aid kit. Every second counted, every moment a gamble against death. The back door was ajar, a sliver of light cutting through the oppressive darkness. We burst through, our hearts pounding in our chests. But our relief was short-lived. A dozen or so undead, drawn by the sound of our escape, shambled towards us, their eyes burning with a terrifying hunger. "Go, go, go," John roared, firing off a round that sent one of the creatures crashing to the ground. We didn't look back. We ran, our lungs burning, our legs screaming for mercy. Section 6. A glimmer in the darkness. We ran until we couldn't run anymore, collapsing in a heap behind a dumpster, gasping for breath. The moans of the undead faded behind us, but the fear lingered, a cold knot in my stomach. We were alive for now, but for how long? "We can't go back there," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "We need a new plan." John, ever resourceful, scanned our surroundings. His eyes, hardened by weeks of survival, landed on a rusty fire escape ladder leading to the rooftops. "There," he said, his voice a low growl. "Our only chance, the rooftops. A dangerous gamble, but in this world wasn't everything. We were out of options. We had to trust John. We had to trust that this wasn't the end." Section 7. The price of survival. The fire escape groaned under our weight, the metal steps slick with rain and grime. Every creak seemed amplified in the eerie silence, a beacon to the undead that lurked below. We climbed, our muscles aching, our hearts pounding against our ribs. John reached the rooftop first, his rifle at the ready. He scanned the horizon, his face grim. "Clear," he muttered. But as I hauled myself onto the roof, I saw it, a lone figure silhouetted against the setting sun. He was just standing there watching us, but it wasn't the fact that he was alive that sent a chill down my spine. It was the look in his eyes, the vacant, soulless stare of the undead. There was no time to hesitate. The infected man lurched towards us, his moans echoing across the rooftops. John didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle, the shot echoing through the desolate cityscape. The figure crumpled to the ground, another victim claimed by this relentless plague. We stood there for a moment, the silence deafening after the gunshot. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next horror to unfold, but for now there was a fragile peace. "We need to keep moving," John said, his voice rough. "It's not safe here." He was right. There was no safety in this new world, only the constant struggle for survival and the long, uncertain road ahead. Days turned into weeks as we navigated the treacherous landscape of our shattered world, each step a reminder of what we had lost. The rooftops became our highways, offering a precarious safety from the dangers below. The abandoned buildings, our temporary shelters. We scavenged for food, for water, and for anything that could help us survive another day. We searched for any sign that we were not alone in this nightmare, hoping to find others like us. One day we stumbled upon a sight that stole our breath away, something we had almost given up on finding. Nestled amidst the ruins, a small community thrived, defying the desolation around it. A banner hand-painted with the words "Hope lives here" fluttered in the breeze. Could this be it? Could this be the sanctuary we had been searching for? We approached cautiously, our hearts pounding with a mix of hope and fear. Our weapons at the ready, we prepared for anything. Trust was a luxury we could no longer afford, not in this world. But as we drew closer, we saw children playing, families tending to gardens, a semblance of normalcy. We heard the sounds of laughter, of music, sounds we had almost forgotten. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a flicker of hope ignited within us, a hope that maybe, just maybe, we had found a place to call home. The community welcomed us with open arms, offering us food, shelter, and most importantly, a sense of belonging. They had built a life amidst the ruins, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. For a while we allowed ourselves to believe that we were safe, that we could finally rest. But the world outside our walls was a constant threat. The undead roamed the streets, their numbers seemingly endless, and as the days turned into weeks, we realized that even the strongest walls could not hold back the tide of darkness forever. One night the alarm sounded. The horde was upon us, drawn to the scent of life, the promise of fresh flesh. The community rallied, their makeshift weapons at the ready, but the numbers were overwhelming. Fear, primal and consuming, gripped us all. The battle raged throughout the night, an unending nightmare that seemed to stretch on forever. The air was thick with the stench of decay, a suffocating reminder of the death that surrounded us. The screams of the living and the moans of the dead echoed through the night, a haunting symphony of despair. We fought with the ferocity of those who had nothing left to lose, our every move driven by sheer desperation. Our hope hanging by a thread, we clung to the belief that dawn would bring relief. As dawn broke, the horde finally retreated, their grotesque forms dissolving into the shadows. They left behind a trail of devastation and despair, a grim testament to the night's horrors. We had survived, but at a terrible cost, our spirits as battered as our bodies. Many of our friends and neighbors lay dead, their lifeless eyes staring into the void, their bodies ravaged by the undead, a gruesome reminder of the price we paid. The community we had fought so hard to protect was in ruins, a shadow of its former self. We stood there amidst the wreckage, our hearts heavy with grief and loss, our faces streaked with tears and blood. The world had changed, forever scarred by the horrors we had witnessed. The landscape around us, once familiar, was now a desolate wasteland, a testament to our struggle. But even in the face of such darkness, a flicker of hope remained, a small light in the overwhelming gloom. We had survived, and as long as we kept fighting, we believed we could endure. And as long as we kept fighting, as long as we refused to give up, we had a chance. As long as we refused to give up, there was still hope, however slim, that we could rebuild. There was still a chance, however slim, that we could rebuild and reclaim what was lost.